I can tell how small your faith is by the way you handle money. And the way you handle money is always in survival mode. What you need to do is to focus on how to save your money and keep your money rather than it disappearing all the time. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Back in the day, especially when I was in a service, the first paycheck I ever got, I blew it all on video games. PSP, I never had. I always wanted it. And this was like 2013 or so, and PSP was out for a while. I always wanted it for a while. I always wanted it. Finally got it. Bought 10 video games with it. Bought my first cell phone. It was an iPhone 4. And I spent like maybe $900 or $1,000. And I got back from GameStop on base, and I was going in formation. I literally dropped everything because the sergeants told us to drop everything that we had. And of course, they were, as they would say, policing us to see what we were doing and where we were going. Because just because we just got out of the basic training phase and we were in AIT now, they just didn't let things slide. Things weren't so sweet. We have to remember that we were still soldiers in uniform. But now, anyway, besides that tangent, when I dropped everything, I realized what I had done, and I was like, oh my goodness, I just bought $900 worth of video games, my new cell phone. I hope everything isn't broken. And when I opened up the bag, the sergeant looked at me and he says, "Private, did you really spend all your money on this?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Why?" And I realized, I said, because I never had it growing up. He said, "You're going to blow money real quick in your lifetime." And he wasn't kidding. The thing that I had wasn't just survival mentality. I developed that later on. I had a necessities-based mindset, and I was just buying things unnecessarily because I thought it was a necessity. And I didn't have any cares because I didn't have any family, no children. I was still living with my mom. And since I didn't have those responsibilities, I wasn't given responsibilities early on. And I didn't learn that financial education, and I didn't have financial literacy. They gave us a financial literacy course in the military, and I learned about the money. And of course, I wasn't paying attention. You know, being up at 4 a.m. in the morning and like 10 hours, or actually 16 hours a day, you're tired. So by day 5, I wasn't really taking in everything, but I took my notes. And I recently looked at those notes, and I'm like, wow, I literally learned the essentials, not everything, but the essentials back then. And it grew my faith, and I didn't even realize it. They planted a seed in my mind, and I always remembered that day throughout the years. Whenever I blew money, whenever I spent money on unnecessary things, whenever I developed survival mode, then I started always replaying that in my head, like, Private, you're going to blow all your money in your lifetime. And I tried saving, then debts happened. I tried investing money, lost my job, had to take the money out and pay rent. So life kept lifing because I didn't have a system set in place to where I can put money to the side every month, and only had one source of income in a 5 household family for years, and in a marriage. So it was difficult. And for anyone out there that's married, if you have one source of income, it's kind of impossible to live. And don't hurt yourself making so much money, $30-$40 an hour, with having little hours of sleep and not seeing your family. That emotional bond and that spiritual bond that you have with your family is very well needed. Please don't skip out on that. With that type of lifestyle of a one income household, makes it very difficult to save and to invest, especially with inflation going up and gas prices going up. I filled my tank was about halfway down, and I filled it up with $26, and I'm not complaining. I smiled there to let you know that I'm here in real life. And with learning financial literacy, I developed a course on my website that taught me the essentials of credit, how to invest, how to open up a trust, how to do 401ks, Roth IRAs, which life insurance policy to buy. And when I finally set everything up like that, then I was able to not worry as much, because now I have my savings on auto draft. I have my policies in place. I have my revocable trust set up. My children are set. My children's children are set. Now it was meant for me to take care of the debts that I had for all these years that I neglected to take care of, collections and so forth. I literally just paid off my final collection. I had a pay per delete, don't get it wrong. I know what I'm doing. I've done credit repair before. Taking care of that, I finally grew out of the mentality of the necessities based to needs and wants. And this is the basics in economic that we learn in high school, the needs and wants. And the needs is what we actually need in life, which is the water, food, and housing, a vehicle. Of course, there's public transportation, but I made it clear to myself I wasn't going to be going on public transportation because of past experience working security on public transportation. With learning about financial literacy, I learned how to shift my mindset from survival mode and poverty talking and poverty thinking to finally becoming someone that took the initiative, that took care of his finances. So now I have everything budgeted, I have everything planned, and if a new situation arises or occurs, then I have to shift what I'm currently putting in reserve, meaning like savings and stuff, pause it, not all of it, but pause it maybe about halfway or a quarter, and then allocate that quarter towards a new debt that just incurred from the past or something that somebody needs. So I'm taking out of the wants. Now this is going back to the high school education of economics. The wants is stuff that we want to have. We want to have a savings. We want to have a 401k. And we do need it later on in life, or when you have something happen in life, whether it's something from a friend, something for a family member, the way we steward our finances for them, yes, I mean, we have to steward our finances for others because this is a blessing to them. God has given us that reserve that we need to bless others, to bless his kingdom. We're here to lift each other up. The Bible also tells us to befriend a wicked person in your lowest days. Jesus said this, because who's going to be there for you? But if a wicked person doesn't trust you, then who will? But that's not to say that you're a wicked person. It's highlighting what's in the Bible. So if a wicked person is there for you on your day of adversity, why can't we be there for each other on our day of adversity? And so I say that to say this: learn how to steward your finances and have the expectation to help others. Of course, you need to take care of yourself, and we want to help others, but don't put yourself in a bind if you don't have the finances in a moment to help other people. I did this some time ago. A friend asked me for $200. I sent him $200, and it set me back. If I missed work for 2 days, I missed out on $250 or $300. Now my family is in the bind. I'm in the bind. I have to cut my resources for getting supplements or items that I want. Like, these are fun things for me, like going to the gym, reading about business, studying about business. That's my hobby. I continuously want to learn. So gaining wisdom was a want. So I had to reallocate money from a monthly mentorship at $59 a month, learning about financial education, to pay for food. And realizing that, I'm like, okay, let me get back into it. Then it happened again. Then I had to retake the money out and take care of myself. And I say that to say this for you: stop thinking in a poverty mindset. Stop thinking or living in a recessive lifestyle. Living below your means doesn't mean buying ramen noodles every day or buying it throughout the week, and then now you're sickening your body with all these chemicals and ingredients for food that was meant for survival. You're not stuck in survival mode if you learn how to reallocate your finances and stop spending it on things that you don't need. No, because I've done it before. We like to go to Five Below. And the only way to get out of it, things. Number one is to learn how to budget. Budgeting may seem difficult and it may seem boring, which it is boring, but it's not easy. We think we have our money in order, but do we really know what we're spending on DoorDash, going out to eat, when we should be disciplining ourselves to cook at home, meal prep for the week, freeze our food, and then eat it? The second step to shifting from that mindset to having more is the mindset of stewardship. Think about the parable of the talents. Talents meaning money. Talents were money, not actual talents. There was 3 servants. One who received much more than all the others, the second one who received twice as much, and then the last one who, rather than putting his money in interest, buried it and waited for the master to come back. And then he told the master, I buried the money, here it is. And you know what the master did? He didn't say, oh, good job, you saved the money. He said, that was a wicked thing you did. That was wicked, servant. You put my money in the ground rather than putting it in a bank and gaining usury, which is interest. And he banished him, took all that he had and gave it to the others, which multiplied. That's what stewardship is with finances. You have to learn how to invest the money properly. You have to learn how to give it to the right places to receive your interest. Giving to others will give you interest in the spirit. That's what faith is. Now, this is where faith ties into it. If you're giving out of anger, if you're giving begrudgingly, like, all right, fine, here's the $20, you're not going to receive the blessing. But if you give it cheerfully, how do you give it cheerfully? Once you get your paycheck, or before you get your paycheck, think in your mind, okay, I'm going to set aside $20 for anyone who needs it. If somebody needs $20, I'm going to give them this. Hold on to that $20 in a separate bank account, in-house, hide it somewhere, but keep note of where it's at. And once you have it allocated, then you can cheerfully give. And if somebody comes to you like, hey, bro, you got $20, you remember now you stockpile $300 worth of $20, because if somebody doesn't come to you for quite some time, that $20 stacks. And then that's money in reserve. You can be like, oh, yeah, that's right. I have this allocated for that. And when somebody else sees that, they're going to be like, wait, you have your money like that? And I was surprised. Somebody actually asked me that, and I'm like, yeah. I put money aside knowing that if somebody needs it, I can give them to it, because this is surplus. Even if it's $20, it's still surplus. And then, of course, that compound interest gains more and more if you save it. And now you have money that you can give in a lump sum to somebody if they need it later on in life, if they need a down payment for a home, if they need a down payment for a car. If something happened, unfortunately, if somebody went away to the next life and then they need the burial costs, boom, you have it. That's what stewardship is for others. The first thing you have to do is take priority over yourself. Of course, take care of your necessities. Take care of your needs. And then set these wants aside once you budgeted your money properly. And then once you steward your money, the third step is to give to God. Now, there's a lot of speculation and differences on whether or not you should tithe if you are living paycheck to paycheck, if you're in debt. For me personally, if I'm in debt and I seriously need the money, I'm going to borrow from God. Now, here's the key. You can borrow from your tithe, but you have to pay 30% interest back to God. And I set up a payment plan to where I was going to borrow for 6 months and then pay it back over time. This is where business in the kingdom comes into play. And I never knew that you can actually borrow from God. I'm not stealing from him, because I've already said in my heart, okay, God, this is what I'm going to do. I have this plan set out. I'm going to pay you back over time, which is the 30% interest. If I have $235 for a tithe, I have to pay back $80-something in interest. And then I say I'm going to pay it back within this amount of time. Then I inform the pastor or whoever is the leader of the church, let them know I'm going to be borrowing and I'm going to pay back my tithe biblically in this set time frame. Have them pray over the finances with you, and then let them be aware. Because there are, unfortunately, some times where people will pick you out in a service or talk about you in a service without knowing your situation. It's sinful. We're not going to go on a tangent, but here's the information. It's sinful to let other people think about you in a certain way if it's not true. Correct them in a polite manner. Hey, that's not happening like this. Here's how it's happening. Explain the situation properly. Don't hide it. Now, going back to it. Once you borrow from God, you set out the plan, maybe a year, maybe 6 months, you pay back the tithe. Pay down your debts. Jesus said, pay down your debts and pay it back in full. Because back in those days, people could get locked up for not paying their debts. So once you pay Jesus said you got to pay back every penny that is owed. And you won't get out until every penny is paid. Treat your finances that same way. your freedom. You want to be financially free. Pay down those debts, meaning past due credit cards, charged offs. Negotiate the collections for pay per delete, and then set up a payment plan. And once you have, so that's 3 steps on how you can change your situation financially and become financially stewarded. Chances, even for entrepreneurs, you'd be surprised how much money disappears and how many people are piercing the corporate veil. It's about how to set up your trust, how to set up an LLC properly to receive funding. Here's another nugget. Naming something baking at home LLC is not going to give you funding. They'll see the LLC as risky.